How can we make math more digestible and focus on removing the phobia of the subject? That was the core idea. When we realized that math is never experienced, let's say we talk about algebra, you talk about ratios or fractions, they don't know why they were doing it. Most importantly, how does it impact their life today?
This model got introduced in India first.
Yes.
By globally, you mean 4 countries, right?
Yes. We always divided math into two parts. One was number literacy and one was number interpretation. We've been able to build a model which is sustainable for every school. See, India is a huge market. Looking at what can we do new in a school which can then be replicated in any school across the globe. It doesn't matter where you're based, it's about the passion that you can bring on the table.
What do you think is the key differences between these passionate, enterprising teachers versus not so enterprising and not so passionate teachers?
Children can experience the knowledge with the help of the teacher.
Institution and organization is a reflection of its leader.
Correct.
Do you find that similar in schools as well?
100%. The way you lead them, the way the others are actually going to follow your footsteps.
What are the key differences between an enterprising school and not so enterprising school?
The schools who are focusing on giving children different experiences is very important. If you can't raise fees, you can't raise salaries for your teachers, and that means you have to tell your teachers to work for one more year at the same price.
What is the biggest challenge in your business?
The right human capital, having the right team members is definitely the biggest challenge. Whether you're a tech or a non-tech company, if you don't have the right people, you cannot sustain.
Tell me about your glasses. I mean, like, it's one side you have a square, the other side you have a circle. Hi, Divesh. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And I'm quite excited about today's conversation because let me tell you why am I excited. Because a lot of people that I meet, mostly youth, let's say 9 out of 10 people that I meet, most of them talk about how Nepal is a very small economy, how the lack of access to fund is making them not innovate or let's say start something, and how they are compelled and forced to go abroad because literally Nepal has nothing much to offer. And here we are. I got introduced to by our respected Ranjit Dai. Thank you so much, Ranjit Dai. Here we are. You are running. You change and you took an idea, and now you have scaled the idea into 4 countries, and working with so many schools to empower math education in school level education, right? So, am I correct
Yes,
so far?
that's correct. Yeah.
So to give you a bit, to give our audience a bit of context, you co-founded a company called UnMath School Private Limited with your wife, Rasi, and in Nepal it is known as Embark on Math Private Limited.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so let's go from the basic. How this idea came into an existence?
Well, there are 2-3 instances which actually led to this. To begin with, when I first met my girlfriend, she was my girlfriend then, now she's my wife. So when we met in college, one of the common things that we realized was that she was not very fond of the subject, and I was really fond of the subject. So we started talking, and that meaningful conversation made us realize that it was not about the subject that she did not like; it was the way it was presented to her, and that idea stuck into my mind, and I said, okay, this is something which should be worked around. And I know a lot of people around me also who may not be very excited about the subject or may not be very fond about the subject.
By subject you mean math?
Math, yes, specifically in math. So when we were trying, and then of course, this conversation kind of fizzled out. I got an opportunity to study abroad. I was studying for a year in London, and when I was studying there, I realized that the way they approached education was so different as compared to what we did it in our Asian subcontinent. And when I came back, and then I picked up this conversation again with her, and I said, you know what, I think there is some substance to the way you were talking about, that you did not like the way it was presented to you. Probably we can do something about that. And that's how the entire journey kind of made us believe that maybe we could do something. It's not like you need to be a person with a mathematical background, but you need to have a passion towards the subject, or passion towards actually understanding why are you doing this, so the learning becomes a little more meaningful for kids.
So why was this idea of pursuing math to make it more simpler to kids was important for you? I mean, like, did you already saw money to be made as an entrepreneur? You saw, okay, there is so much of opportunity that I can make money out of it, or it was a general curiosity of maybe I can do some impact to the people?
Obviously, it was general curiosity to understand that how can I add value. And honestly, when we started this in back in 2012, we weren't teachers, right? So obviously, we did not know what value we could add into a school ecosystem. So we wanted to experiment that, and we were very curious about the fact that how can we make math more digestible and focus on removing the phobia of the subject. That was the core idea. Because when we spoke to a lot of people after we realized that maybe this is an area which could be worked upon, majority of the people, and I'm sure most of your viewers also, when they, talk about math, the first thing is maybe I'm not a math person, or maybe I don't understand math, or I don't get it. That's majority of the crowd that you talk to.
I think on average, it is one of the least most enjoyable subject. If we ask like 100 people, most probably you'll get so many people saying, I don't really enjoy math, and I am one of those.
Yeah, I think that's a very common thing to come across. Absolutely.
So like it when did the idea actually took a sip of a business? Maybe you realized maybe we can invest more time into it, and maybe you can make it a viable business.
So, of course, the first 2, 3 years we were experimenting. We were trying to see how we could add value. And in order to understand that, we first wanted to do some ground research, go to different classrooms across the country, try to see what's the gap in the education system. When I say gap, I mean to say I wouldn't say that the system or anything. I would just say the way it was being delivered, how we could bring in a change in the way children perceive math. After doing a little bit of experimentation, after spending a couple of years on the ground, understanding what is it that children really need to fill that gap, is when we realize that math is never experienced. And that's the time when we realize that, okay, this is a good business opportunity as well. Apart from spreading our passion, we should be able to actually see how this can be scaled, how this can be helped in classrooms across the globe, and probably make a good cause and also make revenue out of it.
Did you make money on the first 2 years of research?
I would say kind of, not really. It wasn't like it wasn't lucrative money in the start, but at least it helped us cover a cost and kept us running from the initial phases like any entrepreneur would like to do. But yes, we were able to at least bootstrap with that.
So how did the research look like? I mean, like, what do you mean by doing research?
So what we used to do is we used to visit schools. I mean, we used to set up schedules with them in
We
such a
as in
way.
you and your wife.
Yes, we would go to the schools and we would try to do a student led workshop. We would offer them a program wherein we would use gamification of math, and we felt that children would love games and sports. So we would try to combine that and see how math could be actually made fun in the classroom. So while we were doing these sessions, we used to run math weeks, or we used to run boot camps, and we used to do these different programs. So this allowed us to get access inside a classroom. What is a child thinking? What is a teacher thinking? What is the school's expectations in the long run? And these were all small, say 10 days event across the year, or maybe 20 days across the year, or even for sometimes it was only a 4-day program in a school. But that gave us a lot of on ground experience to understand what is it that children really fear when it comes to math as a subject.
So what was that?
I think it may not sound very heavy in terms of the subject, but it's like they did not know why they were doing it. They
Okay.
knew how to do it, but they were not aware of, like, let's say you talk about algebra, you talk about ratios or fractions. They don't know why they were doing it. It was a part of the curriculum. They knew how to do it and they were very good at it, and they were able to excel over there. Teachers were giving their best in terms of giving them real life examples, but kids were not able to relate to those real life examples because probably that's something which they would be using when they grow big or once they advance in their career. So they weren't there was a gap for them to understand that why am I doing this in the first place.
Do you think our curriculum is designed in a way where the focus is more on breadth and not on the depth?
I think the curriculum does have enough focus on both the areas. It's just that the way we question that needs to change. See, you cannot master math without doing the basics that we have in our curriculum. You need to have that. But the way you're questioned is, and the way you are put in a situation, or the way children are challenged, I think more than the content, I would say the more the way it is being examined is a challenge which I would want to focus on.
Because I remember even after like completing my plus two and during my bachelor days, we used to talk with our friends that what use did we had of learning algebra? How did we even used the geometry that we were taught about, that we beat our head around it. And honestly, I don't have an answer if geometry was actually helpful to me and what I'm doing right now. Obviously, the basic math was really helpful. It's business is all about math. Social media is all about math. But I am not sure if a lot of things that we were taught around algebra, geometry was helpful, has been helpful to me in what I'm doing as of now.
I think, yeah, that's one of the common gaps that children usually face in the school system, and not understanding the theorems, the a plus b the whole square. The use of variables itself would scare children. Like they would say, we are good with math and numbers, but why do you have alphabets in them? And why do you complicate things by putting, various variables? So I think the common challenge for children even today lies is they talk about a lot of content which has very basic and very strong principles, but they're only lacking in building a real life connection. And I think the right word would be, it's not digestible for the kids to understand that in today's world, when the awareness level is extremely high, I think it's important that they need to be math aware, and they need to know what they're doing and why they're doing, and most importantly, how does it impact their life today. Like, say for example, when you talk about algebra, and many a times whenever I visit a school, we're talking to kids, they always say that, sir, how are we going to even use algebra? I just said, go to the most basic thing that you use every day in your classroom. You use one timetable. That timetable is the pure example of algebra. Every classroom, every section in the school has to have equal number of periods. You cannot have a grade 5A and 5B having less math periods in one week and more science periods in the other week. They all have to be equal. They build an equation, and that equation is only and only based on how many sections we have, how many teachers we have, what are the resources we have. So you have to play around with that and making sure that the teachers get enough time to prepare, to reach there. Most importantly, when you have a huge campus, you cannot have a teacher moving from one end to the other end in a span of 2 minutes. It's not possible. So there is going to be loss of time. So every little bit that is planned in the timetable, which is one of the most common thing every child uses in their classroom, I think they need a lot of math in it, and they just need to start visualizing it. And the word that I've been trying to use very practically is they need to experience it. So I think when they don't experience math, they feel it's all about calculation, and it seems very Greek and Latin for them. But the minute they start realizing that, okay, this is making an impact in my life and I have a direct connection with this, it becomes a lot more easier.
So now, when did this thing took a shape of a real business, and then you realize, okay, now this is a serious business, and I should build a team around it.
So initial 4 years was more of a boutique business idea. It was like more of a
If you have to give it a year to it,
2012 to 2016.
okay.
It was those 4 years when we were trying to do only student-led workshops. We started off with middle school, then we went to the primary grades, we went to the senior grades, and then eventually, we kept checking how we could add value. And after spending 4 years, we knew that now we had enough experience to at least understand the classroom dynamics, the way certain things would work in a classroom, certain things would not work in a classroom, and what are the challenges for the teacher on the ground. That's the time when we moved to a model wherein we started focusing on teacher training from 2017 to 2019 for 2 years. For 3 full years, we did a lot of teacher training programs. There we saw teachers loving the ideas and wanting to implement them. But we saw a small gap out there that teachers were able to have a great interaction with us. But for some reason, it wasn't getting translated inside the classroom. Probably because of time constraints, probably because they were not able to understand which day, when should I actually implement it. So execution became a little bit of a challenge for the teachers. While they still loved the ideas and wherever they could, they kept implementing it. But we wanted to make it more as a part of the curriculum. And that's when we revamped ourselves in 2019, and we made it a whole year long program wherein our team not only focuses on the creative side, but also focuses on the implementation part of the entire program. So we focus on training the teachers, getting them empowered to think in a different manner when it comes to math, and then moving on to also assisting them in executing the entire project for the entire year too.
So from ideation to execution, end to end.
Everything. Yes.
Okay, and this model got introduced in India first.
Yes, in 2019 it got introduced in India.
Okay, and how many years after that did you came to Nepal?
I think I came to Nepal in 2014 when we were doing the student research itself.
Mm.
So we had already started working with the students because that had given us a good idea.
Mm.
And I think we had done this in all the other countries. So I think we primarily, like in 2019, when we launched the year long program, it pretty much got adopted in almost all the countries that we are active in
Mm.
because everybody loved the idea because they all had at least done some teacher trainings with us. And when I say some, it was almost approximately 2 to 3 times in a year the schools were training the teachers through our workshops. But
Mm.
we wanted to do a little bit more and add more value.
Mm.
Hence, when we introduced this model, it was globally accepted instantly.
Mm. By globally, you mean 4 countries, right?
Yes,
Nepal, India,
Sri Lanka and UAE.
UAE. Okay. So the second country was Nepal.
Yes.
Then it was Sri Lanka, and then Dubai,
It
UAE.
was then Dubai and then Sri Lanka.
Okay. So how many teams are you employing right now in Nepal?
In Nepal, we are building a team size of 8 people.
8 people. And when did you officially started working in Nepal in this new model?
This new model started in 2019.
29 only.
Yes.
So the new model were introduced to all networks of yours.
Yes, because they already were using our teacher training workshops, right? So we said instead of just having selective workshops, why don't we do it for a year long program and make sure we are able to deliver everything and not just be the creative side, but also be a part of the implementation cycle.
So from 2012 to 2019, why did it took you 7 years to come up with this more execution wala model?
Obviously, like the first 4 years were primarily understanding what we really need to add value in the first place. So it was more of a research. Then the next 3 years, we were focusing on building more and more teacher training materials, which would be really value addition for them, trying to get some more evidence from their side. And during those 3 years, we kind of understood that the amount of evidence that we were looking for in terms of making sure that whatever we are discussing with teachers is actually getting implemented required a sturdy year long support rather than just giving a training and then moving out. So hence we modified and we pivoted from that model, and we realized that getting into this was far more better because even the schools felt more comfortable with us. And the kind of way that we've structured it is that the kind of money that a teacher invests in hiring a good math teacher, in less than that, if he could get a team to transform the entire math ecosystem in a school, would be a lot more value addition. So that's how the win-win situation became a practical solution for schools.
Mm. So how is the experience of running business in Nepal?
Well, honestly, I've loved it. I've enjoyed a very good set of people, a very good, I would say, the open mindedness in teachers out here for doing something new has always been the biggest advantage for us. Most of the teachers are very excited for trying something or the other new, and they're very passionate about it because they want to get the children up to a global standard or to a global level, right? So what we've been able to identify primarily is that the way teachers work in Nepal is that they are always open to something new, and they never fear that, oh, this is going to be like a major change and I'll have to transform that kind of resistance we barely get in schools out here.
Maybe you must have got that resistance when you were doing just the teachers training, right? Because now it's execution, they might feel more comfortable because some sort of hand holding is there.
Exactly. I mean, there were times when you walked into a classroom and of teachers who were working with you, and when you're talking to them about different strategies, there'd be teachers who are far more experienced, and we never wanted to make them feel that we know better than you because content-wise, I don't think we can ever be better than them because they've been teaching it for so long, right? It's just that the way we wanted to present that topics, we had a few ideas which we wanted to make sure that gets deployed in every classroom. So we always divided math into two parts. One was number literacy and one was number interpretation. Literacy is where they do the basic calculation, and the teachers are doing a fantastic job. I think Asians are known for good math. So I didn't want to enter that space. What we wanted to enter is the interpretation part, wherein we have, let's say, 4 plus 4 is going to be 8. But for you, 8 may be different. For me, 8 may be different because your interpretation of 8 cameras and for me interpretation of 8 employees would be different, right? So we need to figure out how I would interpret math over there. So that would be the primary goal which we wanted to focus on.
Which was harder for you, convincing school leaders to have you on board, or gelling up with the teachers once the deal was done?
I think they both have an equal role in some
No, which is
capacity.
more which is more tougher for you on your end?
Um,
Convincing a client or convincing a school leader to pay you for this, or once they're convinced, going into the ground,
I I
gelling up
honestly
with
feel they
teachers?
both were equal challenges. I'll tell you why. When you're talking to a school leader, you're asking them to make a major shift in their ecosystem. While you're asking the teachers, you've got to make them comfortable that we are not here to disrupt the way you're teaching. One of the biggest advantages we've had is that we are not a software, right? So whatever the school culture is, we've been able to try and modulate ourselves within that system, so it becomes easier for them. So I would say they both are pretty equal. I mean, they both are separate challenges, but they are equally tough to convince. And if it's a school leader, one of the common things that we can tell them, I mean, I would say them that, okay, fine, let's try it out. If you don't like it after 3 months, we won't raise an invoice for you. So the school feels, okay, this is something which they're promising results, and they don't mind putting in 2 to 3 months and seeing how things work. And there have been times, like I remember there was this one school who was not very sure. They were like, this might just disrupt my class, and what if I'm not happy with it? So we said, okay, let's do one thing. We'll come to your school, we'll do the session, and probably after a visit, you tell me if you like it, great. If you don't like it, we won't raise an invoice at all. And seeing that, a lot of schools said, okay, that means we know what we are trying to say, and we have confidence in doing what we are doing, which build a lot more confidence with them. So yeah, it's not going to be easy in both sides. They're two different challenges and completely equally exciting and challenging too.
Let me reframe my earlier question. So, how is the experience of working with Nepali entrepreneurs? These are entrepreneurs, right? People are
Right,
running schools.
right.
Nepali school leaders compared to India, compared to Sri Lanka, compared to UAE.
I have had a very good interaction over here. I think the decision making is faster. I mean, if they're sure, they're sure. I mean, if they need some more time, they're very upfront about it. It's not very bureaucratic, which I see in other countries wherein they have to take series of approvals, and it takes time. But I think out here, it's like if they want to do it, there's no questions asked, and we just have to find a midway out and come up with the best solution possible. You don't have a very long hierarchical process in getting things approved and getting moving things around out here. So that is one of the positive things that I would really appreciate of this country.
Is it because of us being small?
I wouldn't say being small. I would say because of the willingness to understand that they all understand and realize the challenge in math is real. So for them, it's about they want to start doing something to bring that change. And I think the excitement in all the entrepreneurs who are passionate about education, most of them have ventured into schools. So we can see that when they are actually planning things. So I don't see that they let money come in the way of innovation, which is a very good thing. They do have challenges at times. There are schools who say that, look, we don't have the kind of budget, but we really want to work. We have to find a way out, and we've been able to build a model which is sustainable for every school.
Now, on the more critical side, what do you think we need to improve when you compare it with schools or leaders in India, Sri Lanka, and UAE?
I would say having, at times, in some places, we observe having more departments and more autonomy towards those departments is a lot more helpful. I think having a little bit, like, say, there are some schools who've been able to establish having a separate math department, having a separate subject department, and let them take the lead
Oh,
on that. That is one area where I've started seeing the change coming in the last 2 to 3 years. But when I came here back in 2014, that time that did not exist. But it still has a long way to go. And I think now the schools have realized that unless they don't allocate that work and they don't give responsibility, it's going to be very difficult for one or two or three core team members to do everything. It's not going to be easy.
maybe a lot of school leaders are watching this, and if I have to draft a question on their behalf, what is a commitment be like if if a school has to onboard you?
Mhm. In terms of financials or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So I think these usually these schools charge. I mean, the way we work with them, they go anywhere between, say, 50,000 to 80,000 per grade for the entire year.
Per
That's
grade, as in like per class.
per class, not per section. So it depends on the number of days that we're going to be allocating and the kind of time that we're going to be allocating, and that varies from this range. And at times even goes to a lakh or a class if there are lesser number of grades
Per month, right?
per year.
Per year.
Per
So, for
year.
example, on a lower end, if it is 50,000 per class,
Hmm.
if I have 5 class, I'm paying you 2.5 lakh.
Yes, but that price is primarily for when you have all the 10 grades taken on board. So that's like,
Okay.
so that's how we've priced
Comes
it.
with a.
Yes.
Okay.
The minimum number of grades have to be selected is that.
Okay. And what do they get in return? I mean, like, how many hours of commitment? How many days of commitment?
So when the starting one takes about a 10 to 12 days in the whole year. That's on an average once a month kind of a commitment. And if you're looking at something which is more than that, then the price of course varies. We primarily work our model on the number of days that we allocate to a certain school so that it becomes easier for us to kind of, get a better understanding.
But for you to, for example, if somebody is signing up for 5 grades, and what if all 5 grades does not have a math class on the same day?
Oh, so that's usually planned in such a way that every class in every school will always have one math class per day.
Okay.
That is mandatory. Like you'll never see any school or any class in the entire world where you'll not have a math class on a particular day. That's like 99% of the cases in most of the places. So we've never had that trouble. And if it's like say 10 grades altogether, at times there'll be a math class in 2 periods at the same time, and if the school is small enough, then we manage to kind of substitute the classes because you're going once a month. But if at all the school is like really big and you have a lot of sections, then probably one day a month will not be sufficient, and that's why we have a higher pricing model and then we charge accordingly.
How many schools are you catering right now in Nepal?
Nepal, we are working with about 54 schools.
54. In India?
In India, roughly about 120.
Okay. In Sri Lanka?
Sri Lanka, about say 22.
And in UAE?
UAE, we have about 38.
38. So Nepal is your second biggest market after India.
Yes.
Which country is growing aggressively?
The UAE market is growing aggressively. Nepal is definitely on the complete rise, but we also see that there's a huge jump in the way schools want to work. But these are all year-long commitment schools I'm talking about. But the number of schools who do smaller gigs is a lot more in UAE, wherein they want to do 2-day, 3-day boot camps. I've not included those numbers, and the same goes. And in Nepal, you don't see a lot of short-term programs. It's all the long-term. So that's why I said every country has its own ecosystem which works better. And so yeah, in terms of growth, we are seeing the number of schools that we've increased year after year has definitely grown on a very steep basis in Nepal, and very steep even in UAE.
So have you ever thought of sticking to just one format now that we have identified a more scalable model, rather than doing gigs, just sticking with one model and scaling that way? Or you still provide smaller gigs or 1 or 2 classes a year, something like that?
What we've realized is that we want to be innovation partners in math. Right now, that comes with either a long-term goal, a short-term goal, or a mid-term goal. So we want to be open and flexible to anything. While these are models that have already been created, tested, and used, of course, it has to just be viable when the school wants to execute it. Most of the times, it becomes pretty okay. It's not like very difficult to implement it, as long as we know at the back of our minds that we've been able to kind of add value or kind of help us reach a goal of reaching out to a few more kids. We would love to do that.
And how does the customer life cycle, lifelong value works? I mean, like, once assigned, once converted, how long do they work with you?
So typically, in every country they have different cycles. But if you're talking about Nepal, I think most of the schools that we started off with, they've only been growing with us year after year, and we've been trying to add different models of innovation so that they get something new every year. So most of the schools that we work, like in Nepal, we have a good retention rate of 90 to 95%. We haven't seen any school really like kind of dropping off. At times there is a gap let's say in the last 10 years, there could be a school who's done it like for 4 years. Then 1 year we just do a little bit of an audit just to check, but we maintain our relations with them year after year. So we may do a smaller gig in a particular year, and then again we come back to it, because at the end of the day, we are not just the training partners, we are also focusing on the implementation. That has helped us a lot, because if you didn't have the implementation part in our model, I don't think we would have a very high retention rate.
And how much do you think the business is dependent on you? I mean, like, you seems to be the face of the company, right? But then you are operating in four different economy. How have you made it possible to not make the business dependent on you?
We've built systems, it has taken us time, and that's why this wasn't grown overnight. It took us a good 8, 9 years, like you said initially as well, wherein we were able to identify all the different processes, get into the nitty gritties of everything, and build such a strong system that no matter who goes, what is to be done, the end result will still remain the same. It's just the way we present that. So we have a lot of variables. We've built a big bank of about 5,000 math experiences, which kind of caters from grade 1 to grade 10th. And these are, suitable for different boards, be it Nepal curriculum, be it Indian curriculum, be it IB, British, IGCSE, American curriculum, Sri Lankan, the Indian board, whatever you talk about. So we have been able to execute that in a very effective manner. And because of having that vast bank, which we built over the last 8, 9 years, it's become very easy for us to become a complete system oriented program. And now we kind of identify ourselves as consultants, so that when a school says that they want to be our innovating partners for math, we act like a vitamin M, like the vitamin for math. So the existing classroom continues, we just go and add that extra boost and make it easier for them.
And what sort of tangible differences have you seen in schools after that, after you guys have invested a year or so?
Typically, we start looking at the improvement in the curiosity of the children, the way they start answering questions, the way they start approaching their questions in the exam. And the first touch point that you can actually start identifying is the class average in various tests that is being conducted in schools. And that kind of gives a little bit of motivation for teachers to know that, okay, this is going in the right direction. Of course, the growth journey will vary from school to school, year after year, but there has been a constant growth that we've been able to see.
But do you think the truest form of reflection of these work are can be done through these reports? Because when I'm listening to you, I feel like this also might change mindset of people about how they look, how they use math in their general life, how they can leverage the knowledge of math to do bigger and better things.
Correct. So I think from a perspective point of view, you see a major change. That's something, but again, you don't have a tangible way of measuring that. But what I also feel is it's directly proportional to the way you approach your examinations. So whatever the way you start thinking in the right direction, you tend to get a little more excited about practicing with math rather than just doing it because it's given to you as a homework, right? So that makes a huge difference. So I think somewhere down the line, when the attitude changes, that entirely reflects on marks, which is a little more tangible in terms of actually looking at an impact. But I think one of our recent engagements with schools in the last year, we were able to identify the way children were anticipating, or the way they were interpreting math rather, through the Global Math Debate League. I think when they spoke about math, and when they kind of, they were debating about, say, Apple versus Samsung, who uses more math. When they were able to present that, I think that was something which was, that became a much more tangible way of evaluating, like you just said, that their attitude towards a subject changed a lot.
Mm. Now let me ask the same question from a different perspective around Nepal.
Hmm.
Coming from India, 140 crores of people, almost 1.4 billion of population, such a huge market. You could have invested every ounce of your time in Indian market to scale and grow. Because I mean, like, we have heard of a lot of billion-dollar companies in India just in education, right? I can name a few. Physics Wala,
Right.
right? Then there is on Academy. I don't know if
They're still there. Right.
they're still there. Baizu went down, but there. I mean, like, in education, I think there are tons of good companies in India who are doing billion-dollar of sales. And now my question to you, meeting a lot of these entrepreneurs who complain about how they wish they could operate on different economy because Nepal economy is very small. why do you even invest your time and energy in Nepal? Because being born and raised in India, you have a plethora of opportunity in your home country, right?
Absolutely. I think, it's not about which country or which economy. It's about when you see a certain amount of change and you see a certain amount of result. So, again, I never had planned to come to Nepal initially. It so happened because of personal reasons. When I came here, I had come for my engagement. And while I had come here, I decided let's explore how the school market works out here. And a couple of meetings led to a good long lasting relationships, which kind of helped us understand that adding a lot of value out here would also create a long lasting impact for us. So it kind of gave us a much better perspective. So again, I would beg to differ. I mean, see, India is a huge market. You have a huge number of players, you have a huge number of schools. But at the same time, you'll also have a lot of people wanting to provide local content available in different places. So it's practically impossible for you to reach in every part of the country. The way you kind of grow organically, and specifically for an organization like ours, who is primarily a B2B organization, where we only focus on schools. It's a very challenging thing until and unless you've had a team of more than 200 people across India, because you have to kind of enter into every single state, every single city, tier 2, tier 3 city, and reach out to all the schools. And that's a very long process to go there. So while we started seeing some success in India, we started, I mean, this was when I had come here by incident. And when I visited here, I saw a lot of excitement towards math. And we've always grown organically. And whenever somebody has heard about us, and we've grown primarily through word of mouth, and that is where we've been able to capture different markets outside India as well. And we've not kept the focus only and only in India. So yeah, that would be my response on this.
So, so now operating in Nepal,
Hmm.
you started operating from officially you started operating from 2019.
No, from 2014 we started coming over here.
No, but then implementing the business model
Oh yes, that, yeah,
was from 2019, right?
right.
What sort of business realization have you had in Nepal that has helped you to expand outside? Because I think third country was
UAE.
Dubai, and then
Yes.
fourth Sri Lanka.
Right.
So my angle is, I mean, like building an idea, building a business in Nepal. How can these experiences can be leveraged to take the same idea outside? You're getting me?
Yeah. So I think, of course, when we looked at a market outside India, it wasn't a comfort zone. It was a complete different region. Although there's a lot of similarities between both the countries, so it kind of gave us an opportunity to explore. While doing these different ideas, sometimes you would try something new in India, something we would try in Nepal, something would click really well, and then we would do, we would cross exchange that. That led to us getting invited in the UAE for the first time. We started off with one or two schools, which led to a good number of schools out there as well. So eventually, what we saw is that whatever we tried and we did in different schools, we kept looking at what can we do new in a school, which can then be replicated in any school across the globe. We weren't very country specific, we were more school specific, that how can I add more value in a certain school, and how can I take that experience and replicate that into any other school, no matter which part of the globe it is.
I like how you are like constantly narrating the fact of adding value. No, I mean, like in entrepreneurship, a lot of times we are so stuck with an idea of completely like innovating a new product or a new service, whereas most of the time, even in my business and a lot of businesses that my friends are running, it's generally observing an ecosystem, observing different businesses who are operating in that ecosystem, and then identifying what value can they add so the other business can make more, other business can grow faster, and then selling that idea to that business, bringing that value, helping them to grow and growing along. And such a like when even when you listen to it, it's such a beautiful and organic way of scaling a business, right? If you don't have multiple crores of capital investment that you can put in on the day one, this seems like a perfectly a normal, organic, or the best approach of starting a business by adding a value to existing businesses.
Correct. Absolutely. I think that's very true and very nicely put across.
What do you think? I mean, like on one of these podcasts, I was told that cities are more similar to each other than countries.
Hmm.
How do you find Kathmandu similar to other cities that you are operating right now, or different? Let's say.
I would say, like you said, I think cities are pretty similar. You do have the city life, the hustle and bustle. You have, I think in terms of schools, somehow I haven't seen like a difference in the way a school would operate in Kathmandu versus a city in a school in Dubai, or because the core motive of a school is to educate children, right? It's just that the way those programs are implemented, the way the schedules of a school would matter. What I've seen is a lot of schools out here have a little longer duration. In India, you have a little shorter duration,
You mean
like
like
school hours.
okay.
So let's say, for example, a school in India would start at 7 and wrap up by 1 o'clock because they may want to have a second shift of kids coming in the second half. So you have like say space constraints in India a lot of times. Here you kind of see like there are some schools within Kathmandu. I know that they start at about say 8 15 and they are here till like 3 3:30. I've recently come across a couple of schools outside the valley as well, who run schools like from 8 to 5 5:30 in the evening. So once they go home, they just gonna spend time with their family, and then they've done everything possible during the school hours. While in some pockets of India, you do see this trend as well. So it's not like completely new, but majority of the schools in India, like in the top tier cities, like if you want to compare Kathmandu with them, I think they all have like lesser time frame given out there, and for that matter, even in the UAE, you have like it's in between Kathmandu and India. Like there'll be a little more than India, but a little less than compared to Kathmandu. So I think in terms of the nitty gritties, yes, there'll be a few changes and a few differences, but the main objective of the way they've been running things, when a school leader has a different vision, then you can be in any part of the world. You will still run it in a brilliant manner. I've seen schools in the remote areas of Nepal doing a way better job than an actual school in a tier one city in India. It doesn't matter where you're based. It's about the passion that you can bring on the table. So I think this is one area where you want to ignite children. So for us, comparing cities would be comparing schools. I mean, unfortunately, our life revolves around that. So I'm going to be talking from a school perspective. So I would say the culture is pretty much similar. I think the teachers are far more involved out here, and they are pretty much into helping every kid, and they're actually multitaskers out here. Everyone's doing something or the other, and they're involved in so many projects, which is a part of every school across the globe. I mean, I would say a teacher is more of an event planner these days, and they do it fabulously. Apart from teaching, the way they plan and do so many events, it's mind boggling. I don't think I would not be able to do so many things at the same time while creating an impact for children. So that's amazing. So I think that's one common factor, whichever school you go to. And you get to know in every school if there are some enterprising teachers. You don't need to really go and find them. You'll just you the minute you walk into the school, you know, okay, this is an enterprising teacher.
They would approach to you.
They would approach to us, and the way they talk, the way they present themselves, you get to know that these guys are working really hard towards the upliftment of the institution. So that's something which remains a constant factor everywhere.
Interesting. What do you think is the key differences between these passionate, enterprising teachers versus not so enterprising and not so passionate teachers?
I would say it's about the willingness of taking initiative and the curiosity. These are two things which kind of define a teacher, because see, a teacher has knowledge, which is no longer the primary motive of a teacher, right? Like today, knowledge is available on every online platform, books are available. So, the kind of media and the kind of exposure children have, they don't come to a school only for knowledge. Knowledge is a part and parcel of it. They come for an experience, and if children can experience the knowledge with the help of the teacher, that is only possible if there's an initiative taken by the teacher to make children connect with whatever they're teaching. So that would be like a key differentiator.
Like there is a narrative that has formed in me after hosting so many podcasts that institution and organization is a reflection of its leader. Do
Correct.
you find that similar in schools as well?
100%. There is no doubt about that. I mean, this is a common practice. If you're in a school or a corporate, whatever you are, you will definitely have this. So your leaders are going to be your reflection. So the way you lead them, the way the others are actually going to follow your footsteps.
Okay, now asking the same question, the difference between enterprising teachers and not so enterprising teachers. because I think school is probably, I'm like, at times when I think of this post AI world, I feel a lot of higher education might see a dip in the number of applicants, but I think school will only increase. If there is more people giving birth, school is not going to feel that dip, because it's a base. It's more than just education, right?
Hmm.
So now drafting the same question, what are the key differences between enterprising school and not so enterprising school?
See, an enterprising school would be focusing more on building a culture, building a mindset of a child, while a not so, I would say, rather a traditional school would be focusing on ensuring that they have the right knowledge and they have the right, access to exams and the right resources for that matter. So again, they both are two different approaches. One whichever suits the other one the best. There's nothing wrong in it, but in today's world, when I look at the global economy and the way we are seeing things outside, and the kind of awareness that children require, I think the schools who are focusing on giving children different experiences is very important. I mean, kids need to come to school for building some sort of an exposure. So I think whatever we do in our life, it's all about the exposure, so that it's easier for us to plan things in a way better manner. I think not having the right exposure at times can deprive you. I would say the word very carefully at times, because you cannot always say that only people who have exposure excel in life, right? There are people who are very hardworking, who may not have the right exposure, they still move ahead in life. But the chances of a person who's got a lot more exposure can smoothen things out, and they have a little more well aware, and they are actually in a better position to see things in a much different manner than the others.
And now, how Dubai came to happen?
So UAE actually, what happened was there was this Indian school who was based in Dubai, and they read about one of our articles, and the principal was visiting India during that time, during the summer break. And in UAE, they have a very interesting system of um, evaluation of the schools, which caught my attention for the very first time when I was told about it, and that intrigued me. So when the school invited me that we wanted to train the teachers for a school inspection, I assumed that it would be a typical inspection by maybe a local board or something. And when I went there, I realized that the inspection was primarily to decide if the school has done enough to uplift their entire academic journey. And they have various rating system which is governed by the UAE government, and there were different inspectors coming from outside, and they would evaluate the school based on various parameters. And math was one of the core areas where schools were trying to figure out how can they show innovation. And because of that, if the school rating is good right now, and if that rating went to very good, then they were allowed to actually increase the fees. But if they would remain good, then they were not allowed to increase fees. And in today's time of inflation, and in a country like UAE where everything is so expensive, if you can't raise fees, you can't raise salaries for your teachers, and that means you have to tell your teachers to work for one more year at the same price, which would be not acceptable. And there's so many other schools willing to get them. So what would happen is that your entire existence would depend on that inspection. So that one school led to multiple schools in that visit. They met us, they loved the vision and the idea, and that's how our journey grew very organically out there through word of mouth. And then of course we just sent out information that we're doing this in this particular school, if your school would be interested. And then the teacher training started, and then from there we started moving into a year long program. And then schools loved the way that we were able to implement ourselves into their system and primarily help them in their evaluation system. And in spite of being in the same country with multiple schools, biggest challenge for us was to have different ideas for different schools, because the inspectors would be the same. And if they would see the same ideas being deployed by different schools, there would also be a challenge. So that gave us an opportunity to challenge ourselves, that how can we present the same thing in so many different manners that we are never out of ideas ourselves.
Interesting. And how Sri Lanka came into the picture?
Sri Lanka was, I mean, we had read about some couple of good schools out there, and we were hoping to kind of, connect with them. And while having a little bit of an email interaction, they said that, would you like to come and meet us once before we do anything? and we figured the culture was very similar to that of Nepal. So here also, I don't think we've been able to talk to a school from India while sitting out there. Only when we've come here, we've been able to meet them, exchange that human energy, share our passions and stories, and that's when you kind of feel excited about working with each other. And that's how Sri Lanka also happened. So we took the plunge. We said, let's give it a shot. We had a group of schools who were very excited, and we went there. We spoke to them, and they were very amused by the way we were introducing math in different ways. And one of the common challenges for them was that the children were very good at math, but they were again not very good with interpretation skills. And they wanted to develop that because most of them were following the international curriculum. So they were able to solve sums, but they were not able to interpret what the question was actually asking. So that's where we were able to add value.
Do you have full-time team members on all these four countries?
So we have it in India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and in UAE. Currently, we have our core team in India who goes on need-on basis. But our plan in the next few months is to ensure that that's also established out there.
And like 38 schools in Sri Lanka, these are all retainers.
These are all retainers.
Retainers is a good business model, no? I mean, like
Yes,
you can actually predict the revenue that comes in, reinvest on your team as the, yeah, it's a the like in internet it's a software as a service where a fixed amount of income is guaranteed every month,
true.
and I think this agency model of retainership works really well. So, what is the biggest challenge in your business?
The right human capital, one of the biggest challenges. I think we've been able to build strong systems, but we also need strong storytellers. One of the main things that we really want people or the team members to go in, they need to share the same passion, and I think that is, having the right team members is definitely the biggest challenge. So I mean, whether you're a tech or a non-tech company, if you don't have the right people, you cannot sustain.
Plus, being a in a service industry, people is definitely a key. And I find it quite interesting when I ask to an entrepreneur from different industry what is one of the core skills that they look among their teams, and they be like storytelling. And storytelling is something that we provide as a service, and it feels like the world has become so interdisciplinary. I mean, like I would want my HR and accountant to be more math friendly so they can make a better decision. I would want my editor to be more math friendly so they can make a better decision of the time they have to complete a certain task. And it has become so interdisciplinary, I mean, like now you need to be a specialist with a generalist and how do I say it, and somebody who get things done.
Correct. Yeah, that's very well put. Absolutely.
Which is the most profitable country for you?
Well, I would say they all have their own share. I mean, in terms of revenue, and I think we more or less follow the same pattern. Well, you might see more revenue coming in from a certain country. The cost might be slightly higher. You might see a little less revenue coming in, but then there's less cost. So I think the ratio remains more or less the same.
But I assume in terms of number, with India being 120 schools, it must be the
It's,
top.
I mean, in terms of revenue wise, yes, they're top. But in terms of profitability, if you look at, see, that's where percentage
Okay, so which
comes
is
in.
the most profitable?
Like I said, they're more or less in one
You
or
have
two
to choose
percent.
one. Come on.
Honestly, I mean, they are in the same bracket, so they all fall in the range of 58 to 59%, maximum 60%. But that's just like 1 or 2%, yeah, and that's the reason why I think I'm going to tell you why percentage is so important. Different number of schools,
Uh,
different costs, different revenue, different expenses model, and different retainer models also work. So at the end of it, your cost versus your revenue will still remain profit. So when you compare that with different countries, irrespective of the number of schools, percentage is the only factor which will get everybody at the same level, and to make sure that which country is doing at a better level. So I think from a profitability perspective, they all are pretty much in that same bracket with 1 or 2% here and there. So it'll be very difficult for me to say that this country is more profitable than the others, because if let's say country A has say 10 schools, but they may generate a good amount of revenue, but the cost will also be slightly higher. So it'll always depend on that.
and how do you manage your time? I mean, like you definitely have to be everywhere, if not all the time.
Mhm.
So how does your schedule work?
So our schedule usually works like say on an average 2 to 3 weeks in a country.
2 to 3 weeks in a country.
Then we keep rotating ourselves,
Uh-huh.
and of course with the local teams and the other team members where we have. So a lot of client servicing keeps happening in the background at any given point of time. Our focus is primarily on adding more value and trying to build more and more connections, trying to see which schools can benefit more with our interactions. And one of my key things is whenever I'm in a country, I love to do a lot of math talks with kids, and a lot of schools invite us to do that whenever we have the time and everything. So we keep doing that. That becomes a little more exciting and interesting for us. So yeah, I think it's pretty much relaxed. I mean, 4 years back it was a challenge because you had to be everywhere and you were still building your team and everything. But now I think by the grace of God we've managed to kind of stabilize ourselves a little bit, and we are only looking to stabilize this as we move ahead further.
So 2 to 3 weeks weeks. So every 2 to 3 weeks you travel to a different country.
Yes.
That's a lot of travel. I mean, like,
Yeah, I think we've been living the nomadic life for a while, and I think another couple of years we can do this before we could kind of start having a proper base, and then operating out of there only and travel on a need-on basis only. But I think another few years we will be continuing with this level of jumping around. But I think that's something which we really love and we look forward to as well.
I'm trying to calculate 54 divided by 3. How many times do you travel? Do you take a flight? Interesting. Interesting. So you travel with your wife, no?
Yes, yes.
So as a couple, which is the country you enjoy the most?
Um, Again, that's a tough choice to make because when we are in Nepal, we have our own set of things to enjoy out here. We've got family. When we are in India, again, we have family. In Sri Lanka, we don't have family, but then we have different beaches to enjoy. In the UAE, we have a lot of extended family and we have a lot of friends. Uh, and you have a lot of different things to do out there. So I think we've been able to enjoy wherever we go. And I don't think it'll be fair for us to say I want to choose this country over the other because it's this is home for us. So all these four countries are home. I cannot say that this is better than the other. It's just it's a different flavor, and you want to enjoy all of them.
Now, what next? I mean, like, which is the another country you want to expand to?
We're looking to expand more in the GCC region. Like we've already started making inroads in Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain. We started seeing some inroads over there, and of course Saudi Arabia being another big, huge market where we want to enter. So we want to focus more a little bit in the GCC region, penetrate more over there before we start entering, the other Western countries as well.
Tell me about your glasses. I mean, like, it's probably one of the most interesting thing. The first thing that people notice, no? I mean, like, you have one side you have a square, the other side you have a circle.
Well, actually, this was more of a conversation starter, and my wife gifted this to me. So she said that it'll be interesting for you to not just talk about math, but also wear math and make people realize that, when something doesn't look right, there has to be something inquisitive, something exciting. So most of the people feel that there is something wrong with my specs. So that kind of intrigues them to, have a conversation with me. And the minute they get to know that I'm a math guy or I love math, they kind of start making 2 plus 2 out of it and they kind of relate with it. So
So it's a marketing
it's a
strategy of
marketing
yours.
strategy and it's also an identity which has helped me. Like people start recognizing me with this. So it's been good. But yeah, I think the idea was to wear the subject rather than just saying that I want to talk about math.
Okay. Did she found it somewhere or did she 3D printed it?
Oh
And
no, no.
like,
She actually told like somebody to get it made. Like there was an option, so we kind of got and we got lucky with that. So
you must have multiple specs, no? I mean, like, one is not enough, and then
yes, so we had 2 or 3 made, and yeah, and it started off with just like it started off with a personal joke that I'll give you something which is math centric, and then it actually led to something else. So it was good to see that.
okay, okay. The other interesting thing that I got to know last time when we were talking was this competition thing around mathly debate,
Yes, the math debate.
the math debate, something that got started as an idea is now one of your biggest marketing approaches, and it is really helping you to get more leads, right?
True.
Tell me more about it. How did it came into an existence, and how it is helping you in your business?
So this idea came up 5 years back. We were talking about, a lot of people were discussing with us that do you have like an Olympiad or, some sort of a test or something. And I felt this was a very crowded space already. And I said, what can we do that we can add, again, add value? I keep using that word, but what can we do to make things exciting, right? And if I was to ask children to solve sums again, then how am I going to be different from what the others are doing in terms of math? So we were discussing, we were thinking of various ways. So this idea came up about a math debate, and it was actually a conversation happening between me and a student, and that led to realize that what if we actually debated about this. But again, we weren't too sure about how this would work. And then in 2020, after the pandemic had started, we all were thinking of what to do. We had enough time on our plate. We said, why don't we just try something online and give it a shot? We started doing this for a couple of schools, and we said we'll just do a debate competition, and we said we'll do a math debate. And it started off with very basic questions like, say, a musical instrument, like which one uses more math, and a sport which uses more math. In India, we started doing which festival uses more math, and there's so many festivals out there. So we started doing this, and children and parents loved the idea, but we saw there was a gap that they did not know how to actually address this whole thing. So they weren't well aware about how would I go about a math debate, because they know a math competition, they know a debate, but how would you do a math debate was not very well versed with them. So then we decided, let's try and do it, in a format wherein we train the children first how to do it. But then again, it took us 2 years to come up with that model. And then we said, okay, if we want to do this, we'll have to run boot camps in schools. And then came in 23, we decided we'll run this boot camp, and we'll target a couple of schools, and we'll see you those who are interested. Surprisingly, a lot of schools were excited. They said, we will do a 3-day boot camp in your school, train the children. We use that as a door opener so that we get to build a relationship with the school, charge a nominal fee, run it for like 3 days. Day one and day two was training for the children, and day three we decided that we'll actually hold a intra-school competition, and winners from every school would be collectively called in an inter-school competition, and then we would try to get them for a global level. So when we started doing this, one of the common challenges we saw was that initially every child was pretty excited, and whichever schools who came on board, they had a huge number of kids. We did that. The inter-school was good. When we were trying from inter-school to the international round, of course that was a paid program. So the best team, who actually should have gone for the international round, did not have the funds. So there were three children in a team. We said, one of them said, I don't have the money. So the other two were like, because of him, our entire team will suffer. So we decided that this isn't fair, because we didn't want to be another competition which is only and only going to favor for children who actually have the money. So, and this would not add value or would not create an impact. So we decided that what can we do better. So that year we kept it online, and then this year that we finished recently, we again started with a different model. We invited all the schools, and we said that you can participate for free. You need to give a submission, and based on the submission, we'll shortlist children. And every city we'll run a regional round, then we'll do a national round, and then we'll go for the international round. And we started talking to different corporate sponsors and trying to kind of get this entire cost covered. We did it to up to a certain level, and then we realized that in every country, like, we were under the impression that we'll select one team from the younger grade and one from the senior grade. We called them two groups, alpha and beta. And when we heard that, when we saw all the competition of the national round in different countries, we saw that it was practically impossible to select one team from alpha and one from beta, because we had called judges from outside. We had given them a rubric, and there were more than four teams who received 100 on 100. Now, how do we choose one team just because we felt one team can go, and we did not know what to do about it? And suddenly the cost went up. So we decided again this year to keep it online for the entire global round. And next year, we are planning to revamp the entire version, and the kind of support and the kind of love that we've got from all the schools, primarily the way teachers' perception, children's perception, parents, the way they were impressed by seeing the way children actually learned to talk about math, kind of changed their perception entirely. Like they said, we have never seen math being taught or spoken like that. So that kind of is encouraging us. And then from the coming month onwards, we're going to be putting a new plan in action wherein we can accommodate more kids who could travel, and also get a much better exposure.
And now you have contact list of a lot of potential schools.
Yes. So we were able to onboard almost 5,000 schools across the globe, who were able to participate with us in some capacity or the other. and at least what given their initial screening rounds, and of course they kept getting filtered all throughout, and then we finally had about, say, what, 50 teams who participated in the international round, which was really good to see. Like from 5,000 schools, 50 teams getting shortlisted. It was a tedious and a long process, and but the kind of delivery that they did, I vaguely remember these children built up some amazing models talking about, they spoke about TV commercial ads versus radio ads. Who uses more math? They spoke about, things like an aeroplane versus a car, an electric car. Who uses more math?
So the whole idea is comparing two domains about whichever is using more math in their.
Exactly.
What do you mean by using math? For example, let's take an example of this class. How does this class use math?
So, assuming that these two are the same shape and size, but let's say if you had a different shape and size,
Let's compare these two shape and
yeah,
size.
these two shape and size. So, if this was actually a glass, obviously the volume that this would hold would be completely different as this. When you're talking about this glass, when you visit a lot of evening places, when you go to different bars and stuff, you see the glass looks like there's a lot of liquid actually poured, but there's a different illusion that has been created, or they put a huge cube of ice. That's because the liquid used is relatively very less, and more of ice or more of the shape of the glass which takes up makes you feel it is very big, but it's not actually very big. So here, if I compare these two shapes, this shape is primarily a very simple. Why is it in a tapering position? Why can't it just be straight? If it's straight, it would have more volume. In the same amount of material, you would be able to accommodate more volume of water in every glass. While over here, if you look at this was converted into a glass, like such a big, huge glass, not necessarily you'll be pouring so much of water in it. The internal illusion would be in such a way that the volume could be probably just 1.5 times more than this. But if you look at the shape size, this could be probably 3 times the size of this.
Why are you converting this to a glass? Because when you say you compare a car and a plane, how is this using math and how is this using math and which one is using more math more?
We would want to have something which is similar. Like, say, those are mobility things. So
Okay.
at least there is
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
common thing
Okay.
out there. Like, if it's a sport, for example, so cricket versus soccer, they are two different sports. The equipment is completely different, but at least they're a sport, right? So they play it for winning the game. So hence, I was
Okay.
visualizing this as a glass
I understood.
altogether.
I understood. While doing research for this, um, okay, before I ask that, how did you ended up gathering 5,000 leads? It was all social media?
It was social media, email campaigns, and of course, through word of mouth. And one of the biggest advantages was there was no cost attached to it. So, once you started posting it in different groups, and math teachers know other math teachers, and they started telling everybody that, hey, I'm participating in this. Is your school also interested? I think that helped us in building a community.
And after having that conversation with you, I was thinking, how can every business adopt some sort of these events where they where the event is done to empower the community they are working upon, but the whole event actually acts like a lead generation or a marketing or something that actually scale the business. So some sort of business development strategy where an event is designed or something is designed, empowering the community that you are working on, yet building your business.
I think it's the subtle way of, like you said, building a community is the core for any organization. Whether you're doing it for profit, you're doing it for not for profit, whatever you're doing, you need to build a community, right? And if you're building a community and if you can show an impact, if you can show a change, I think for the longest time, math has always been perceived as either you're a human calculator or a geek person who can multiply a 5-digit number with a 5-digit number instantly, and that's great. I mean, that's a skill to have, no doubt about that. But how is that helping you in making a decision in today's time when you're talking about an age where you have AI and you have technology? Number crunching should not be a priority. Your priority should be to interpret the answer, that how am I going to use this to my benefit? And if I don't know how to do that, and if I'm only focusing on the number crunching will definitely improve my concentration. My focus on numbers will be good. That's a brilliant thing, no doubt about that. But how are you going to learn from that? And in today's age, you have to also see the way our trends are shifting. So many things are being done by AI that you don't even probably like. In schools, children have started using calculators in some part of the world, and that's changing. It was never there before, but now it's changing because they've realized that calculation is not the examination. The examination is to see whether they've understood what the challenge is given to them, and if they're able to do that. So when we start building a community, and if you can actually make a change, and if you can change the way people think about that, I think your job is done. You don't even need to consider them as leads or anything, because whichever school we spoke to about the debate, of course they wanted to have, they had a few questions. They would either chat with us or get onto a video call. Some of them we had the privilege of actually meeting them when we were in that city to invite them. 99% of them asked us one question: what does UnMath really do? And that's when we were able to share our vision. And when we said that we're doing a math debate, most of the schools were like, we've never heard of something like this, because we've heard of a math competition, we've heard of various debates, but a math debate was never there. And that's something which we were able to build. And I think that community, and now the way people start perceiving math, although small in terms of a global number, but there's a small change happening somewhere.
Do you see like your business model changing in the post AI world?
Um, See, it only gets exciting and better for us because we were never into hardcore calculations, and AI will only be doing calculations. They'll come up with
No,
models
maybe
of.
not. AI might actually go into helping you break down the same complex logic into a much simpler ones.
Absolutely. I mean, it'll just make our life easier in terms of interpretation. They'll build models wherein they'll break down things and make it more easier for you to interpret. But a mathematical mindset is something which an AI can post to you, but the end decision is going to be in the human being. No matter what model or what tools you use, how sophisticated those tools are, at the end of the day, the person who decides what has to be done will be a man, or a person who's designing the algorithm for the entire technology. So let's say, for example, today when you have a simple example like say InDrive, when you use that app, or you use Patao, or you use any booking cab booking apps, while you're doing that, the entire algorithm is based on the fact that how far is a cab from your place, which driver would be the best suitable thing, where do you want to go, which driver would be keen to take you out there. So you'll see a lot of permutation combinations happening. After all of that, the driver has to accept. Until the driver doesn't accept, the cab will not come to you. So until he doesn't accept, so why will the person accept? Because the entire decision has been made by the company, the fare is given, the timing is given, the driver has to make a decision that will this be a beneficial thing for me or no. Until the person cannot do that, what's the point of AI?
Okay. So I think we're almost on towards the end of our episode, and for this podcast, I did some bit of research, and then I came to know that the math is the language of nature. um, it's like and on a lot of these like smaller TED talks and few podcasts, I realized they mentioned that math is all about patterns. It's
Correct.
all about recognizing patterns so that you can make a better decision.
True.
And nature is all about patterns. And I ended up like I think I didn't do much deeper, but then I ended up to there is a ratio that relates with beauty,
Golden ratio.
golden ratio. Yes. So like if you keep on listening to these conversations, everything is math. So my question to you: what is math?
I have always been saying that math is a language which has been misinterpreted by everyone but spoken by everyone. We all use it, we just don't know when we're using it. Like just before we started, we were adjusting the mics, the angle of the mic, just to make sure that our audio is heard properly. The camera setup, the lighting position, the table, the height, literally any little intricate detail around you. Or I think the better way of putting it across, probably all your listeners could just for 2 minutes shut your eyes and imagine if there was no math in your life, what would be the actual impact? I think nobody can even reach up to 2 minutes. The first 30 seconds, people are going to panic. That how can you lead a life without time? You don't have, with numbers, you don't have time, you don't have mobile numbers, you have nothing. There's no way for you to execute anything around you. So the first 30 seconds, half of your listeners will be like, okay, this is not possible.
Even when you go to a hospital, the first thing they do is they check your blood pressure, right?
Exactly. I mean, you just cannot operate in this world without math. I mean, the minute you get up till the time you sleep, The time that you sleep is also math driven. So literally anything around you, it has to be math driven.
And instead of getting overwhelmed with it, maybe trying to see it in a smaller patterns, embracing it, making better decision, and making most out of it.
Exactly. And I think when kids see math in their textbooks, at times the language of the textbooks kind of scare them out. Primarily when they use the word problems, it scares them right there. It's a problem. Second is that you have obnoxious situations like a man buying 12 bananas and 32 apples, which is never going to happen. So practically, I mean, if they had a much more realistic approach, then doing what they're doing right now would definitely help in bridging the gap.
On a very subjective narrative, do you think our education system needs a major change? Because what you said just now, I think it is not any different to what it is being taught a man buying 50 bananas and 50 apples. And maybe these were the formats better suited for industrial age, but post digitalization, post AI, maybe something more relatable example, something more relatable way of teaching math would be better, right? So, do you have any strong say about where the how it should evolve in the future so that everybody stay relevant?
I think, very correctly put by you, the most important thing about our current education system is conceptually we are strong. There's no doubt about that. But the way that concepts are presented and the way that is experienced in the classroom or the kind of exposure, it doesn't match with today's world or digital era. So if you have to make a good combination, you cannot get rid of the existing books, the existing systems, because those are the base. And without that, you cannot think out of the box, but you need to think, you need to have those basics. And if I was to summarize the way we are looking at our education system, I keep saying this at multiple forums as well, that you want a child to follow one textbook, everyone in the same classroom, but still think out of the box. That doesn't make sense, right? Like it doesn't add up. So you need to give people the option to explore. And I think having that opportunity to learn a concept, irrespective of the book or the concept that you're teaching, I think that's something which is a need of the hour. And the exposure should match the current digital age.
Do you think your business model would be relevant in West as well?
100%. I
Because
mean,
the first thing you said when you came back from UK, you realized that a lot of things in this part of the world is taught differently. So you must have seen a better version of how it is being done in London. That gave you a very uh, an idea how do you, I mean, like, it's all relativity, right? You compare one things with the other.
correct.
So how do you think your business would be relevant in a Western world?
So, like I said, over there, it was more about the exposure. And of course, the challenges that you have to create for these kids, maybe in the West, will differ, maybe. But at the same time, if you look at the stats and the numbers out there as well of children performing in their math, is no different that you see in the Southeast Asian regions. And you see probably kids are not very well versed with math in spite of having. So I think we are on extreme sides. So the Asian side focuses more on the calculation. There, the importance on calculation is relatively very less. So there are, like, I've got to know this because of the American curriculum, like a lot of schools that we work with in the Middle East. And for them, what they learn for kids, like a lot of parents say that they don't even know the basics of calculation till they're in grade four. Because for them, it's all about building a number sense or understanding how to perceive things. So we're on extreme ends, and we need to kind of find a midway which can connect both of them. So having a balanced approach in both the sides is what we're trying to achieve. So definitely the approach might be different, and that's always been different from country to country. But the way we do things, I mean, if you're able to establish what the challenges are and then kind of navigate around it, it'll be relevant in any part of the world.
Can I ask your age?
I'm 36 right now.
36. So you got started from 2012, 13. So almost
I was 22 when I started.
you were 22 when you started. So the average age of Nepal is 25, 24 something. So I'll draft a question. I'll make it this the last question of our conversation. Give a very detailed answer.
Okay.
It's like a test.
Okay.
Let's see how much math do you see in this question.
Okay.
I'll try to make it more numericals. Okay. So Nepal with an average age of 25.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think one of their most common narrative about Nepal is a very small economy.
Mm-hmm.
A 3 crore citizen, I think most probably almost, I don't know a number to be precise, but let's assume a crore of population is outside. So 2 crore of population inside the country.
Hmm.
With with the average per income somewhere around like $1,300 or I think $1,400. I'm so sorry for the number. Numbers might not be accurate to the point, but then this is a very hypothetical question. So the economy is small. The per average income is very small. We have around like 10 to 15 years of window. By the time by 10 to 15 years, we'll be a bit older economy. In last 18 years uh, of we becoming a republic nation,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think the government has changed more than 12 13 times.
Okay.
Again, we have to check the specific data to be very precise. I feel there is some sort of artificially created negative notion about Nepal that this is already a failed state. There's nothing much you can do. Try to go out as soon as possible. So, looking at this data,
Mm-hmm.
what would be your very logical suggestion to this youth of Nepal? Most probably, a lot of them are watching right now, so they can make a better decision about the next phase of their life. Because I believe once you're 25, once you're 24, different phases of life start, right?
True.
So, what would be? Am I? Did I make the question clear, or did I make made it more hypothetical or more like more vague?
No, I think the data points that you shared was pretty good, and like typically what I would do, I just noted down all that information that you gave me, and I think to be very honest, these are all relevant points, and I would not be able to comment about the negative solution or the negative narrative that has been playing around, but I can definitely talk about the affirmative side of it. When you're looking at a smaller economy, the opportunities are a lot more than what you can actually get in a bigger economy, unless you are a tech giant. And see, what happens is that
In terms of percentage, the
in terms of
percentage of okay.
percentages. So what happens is that if you're looking at a tech giant who wants to probably scale up operations, and for them it's all about volumes, and it's about user acquisition and something, then of course you would want to consider that country as Nepal might be smaller in terms of that, but I still would say with the kind of digital advancement that has happened and the way smartphones are selling in the country as well, and if that data is also available, I'm sure people will relate that people have more access to data and more access to smartphones as compared to any other country. I mean, if you compare the percentage or the ratio of them, most of them have a lot of people staying or living abroad, so they have access to a little better exposure. The chances of bringing new ideas becomes easier in a country like Nepal. So I would suggest that you don't have to think about small economy or big economy. You've got to think about what can you add in the economy which has never been done before. I think that's something which is a differentiator. Number one. Number two, if there is already something that is being done very well, if you can improvise that, then also you can add a lot of value, because in today's day and age, you may have a country which has got like less than a lakh of population, or you have more than say 2 crores of population. It doesn't matter if you can offer something which is worth the price. So if at all if any of these youngsters who are looking at or hearing this podcast right now, and if you feel that Nepal may not have a lot of opportunities, I think it's about the mindset. It's not about the country, because I feel in a country like Nepal you can do so many new things which have probably not been done before. So you'll have that first movers advantage. I think one of the advantages that we've enjoyed in the last decade was the first movers advantage. We were able to enter the area because nobody was really talking about this primarily. And I think if you look at the way you've presented all the information to us, 10 to 15 years is a good amount of time if you're investing before you build a big successful empire. uh, it's all about the mindset. It purely depends on two aspects: the willingness of what you want to do, and the mathematical ability to know when to start and when to stop. Like when the numbers don't make sense, and if you don't know when to stop, and if you get emotional in that aspect, then also you're going to ruin the whole thing for you and yourself. So primarily, I mean, an average business cycle, and in a country like Nepal, uh, I would say 2 to 3 years is a good amount of time for you to understand whether this is a viable product or a viable service that you're offering. Even if you're talking about a tech product, if you try or if you do something in Nepal and you're able to capture the audience in a much better manner. There are some amazing tech companies out here, and I've seen the way they've actually grown, and they offer something which I love the way they market themselves. I love the way they are able to connect with the audience. So nothing is impossible. It's just that the way you start looking at things and the way you perceive them. So if you look at, I have a small economy, and if I would prefer to go in a bigger economy, no harm. Try in a small economy, get something ready, take it to the other markets. I've had a very simple vision. A lot of times when I was studying abroad, a lot of my family members told me that, why don't you settle abroad? And I said, I'd rather come back to my country, take that idea and go to multiple countries rather than trying to just look at a dream that I want to be in a certain country. So I get to enjoy the cultures of multiple places, and I think I've been doing that, and I've been able to live up to my passion. So I think with all this information that you've given me, I would recommend that kids need to start a little early. 25 is a little late to excite children. I would say if they are thinking about making something like, as a challenge, between 16 to 18 years is a time when they need to start thinking that how can they add value. It'll give them that thinking process, because they'll obviously not work until they're 25, right? They're going to see the challenges. They
No, they
can.
might. I mean, like I started working when I was 19.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So many people do that, right? And I love the fact that people are very hardworking out here, and they love to put in, love to balance their work and their education. So if they start looking at new opportunities at an early stage, all you have to see is look at every situation as an opportunity. If there is something wrong, can you fix it and can you make money out of it? That's all you need to know. I hope I passed my exam.
yeah, you did well.
Thank you.
Can you also go a bit detail into, obviously, like I'm adding a value, right? Obviously, make something better than it is today. That would be a very basic answer. But how to approach the idea of adding a value if you want to start a business?
Very simple. Ask them if you want to add value. First, understand what is that value and why has it not been done yet. Because if you have seen a problem, I'm sure it's not like nobody else has seen that problem. Then why has that problem not been addressed? There could be a challenge why that has not been addressed, and that is something which you don't get to know until you have an actual practical solution. And once you know that this has not been done for XYZ reasons, and if you can solve that problem, then you automatically solve the main problem.
As a number guy, have you given yourself a number in your mind that this is the number I want to reach in terms of revenue, in terms of your employees, in terms of this and that? Is there any sort of number that you have?
Well, there are multiple numbers, but those numbers are very different than what a typical entrepreneur would think. Numbers are how many students can we impact, numbers are how many schools can we touch, numbers are how many countries can we operate, numbers are how many team members can we grow. Um and I mean, logically speaking, if these fit in well, your target numbers automatically go up. So you don't.
So what's the number of student you want to impact in next 5 years?
Next 5 years, I think I want to go to at least 10 million, at least. And if you're talking about 5 years, yes, that's something which we really want to reach.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. I had an amazing time talking to you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having me. It was a good and amazing conversation.
thank you so much. And we have a small gift.
Oh, thank you
This
so
is for
much.
you.
Thank you. Really
And
appreciate
we have
this.
a small flower pot inside. This
Wonderful.
this is given by Himalaya Floriculture,
Oh, wow.
a fellow entrepreneur who is doing amazing in terms of gifting flowers. And on one of those conversations, he was like, "Oh no, maybe we should figure out a way to encourage more flower gifting between B2B in businesses."
Wow.
So
Actually, this is a brilliant idea. Thank you so much for this.
and then we ended up collaborating, and I've been being vocal about it. Amazing guy, trying to make an impact, trying to produce flower itself, discourage the imports of flowers. And yeah, thank you so much for making this happen. Thank you so much, Himalaya Floriculture, for supporting us. Do you have any do you want to say anything before we leave?
Well, I would say try that exercise. Shut your eyes. 2 minutes. If you can last more than 30 seconds, put it on the comment and tell us what did you really think about it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for everybody who's watching this. Thank you so much for the patience so far. I think I've learned a lot. You must have learned a lot from this conversation. In front of a camera, just two of us talking, but behind the camera, there are amazing people making sure everything is well and perfect. The light, audio, color, and getting uploaded right on time. I'll also like to thank our production company, We Find This, for making this happen. We Find This is one of the largest B2B company who helps different businesses produce their content for their digital footprint, branding, communication, and sales. So if you are stuck in your business in terms of sales, communication, branding, or activating any digital platform, we are probably the best company in Nepal. So do reach out to us. We can definitely help. We'll be back again with another amazing conversation. Till then, you guys take care. Bye bye.